Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all you AP World History students. We just got finished talking about the onslaught of the Industrial Revolution as part of the modern period, the Orange period, the Age of Revolutions, the years 1750 to 1900, and what happens in these 150 years as things are constantly changing and evolving in Great Britain and the United States. Well, now we're going to move over to how that is impacting Japan and the rest of the world. So let's go ahead and get started with that one. Hopefully this one is a quick one. Here's Japan in 1750. Japan is right here off of the coast of China. It's part of East Asia. It's just a hop, skip, and a jump away from California in the United States. So just that we can think about it there. It's also an archipelago. The last time we left off, we remember Japan as being part of the Tokugawa shogunate. And under the Tokugawa shogunate, the emperor had no control, and the Tokugawa, who was the leader of the armed forces at the time, the military, had most of the power and had the samurai under him. Well, Japan is going to respond to industrialization in a different way, and this response to industrialization is actually going to change Japan politically, socially, and economically forever. Did you get that? Politically, socially, and economically forever. So it all starts with this guy here, American Matthew Perry. Not this Matthew Perry. This Matthew Perry. This is the real Matthew Perry. So Matthew Perry, he sails to Japan with something called his black ships in 1853. So this is at the high. This is one of the high points of industrialization that's happening in Europe and America. So he's doing that one. He sails to in 1853. Shortly after he arrives, the Tokugawa shogunate is overthrown in 1868, 15 short years later. And the Meiji emperors, the emperors that had little power under the Tokugawa shogunate, are now going to have all of the power. Can I stop just to check to make sure that I'm recording? Oh, thank goodness. Okay. Whew. All right. So let's set the scene. What was Japan like at the start of this? What allows the Tokugawa shogunate to kind of be like thrown out and for the Meiji emperors to be the big man on campus again? Big man on campus. BMOC. I think that's it. Big Macs. Anyway, the early 1800s, Japan is undergoing economic hardships. There's famine, and people, meaning that there's no food. So I'm going to draw a little apple here and draw an X over it. So there's no food. When people don't have any money and people don't have any food, they get angry and they want to rebel. That's my angry face. So that's what Japan is looking like. Along comes this guy, Matthew Perry. Again, not from Friends, another different Matthew Perry. Comes along in black ships, and that's because of their black sails and all of that. And they force Japan into opening themselves up to trade with the West. And it results in the Dutch, Britain, and Russia signing treaties giving foreigners rights into Japan's, no tariffs on trade, unequal treaties. But they've seen that happen in China, and they're going to kind of get upset about that. So the Japanese reaction to it, just as with China, with these unequal treaties that are happening, the Japanese are like, no, you can't do this. We're Asian, we're East Asian, and these people from the outside, these foreigners, can't come in. So the samurais rebel against the Tokugawa shogunate because they feel like the Tokugawa shogunate is not protecting Japan. They said, we revere the emperors. Expel the barbarians. Get rid of these foreign influences. What does this sound like? Barbarians? Yep. It should sound like China. This is a similarity. That's supposed to say similarity between Japan and China. All right. Oh, no, sorry. And so the samurai rebel against the Tokugawa shogunate because they feel like they're like opening the country up to these foreigners who like have no part of their history, who are going to like tear up and like do away with their culture and everything. And they reinstate the power of the emperor. And they put on the throne in 1868, and a little boy, the Meiji Emperor, 16 years old. Can you imagine you, Adriel, becoming emperor at your age right now? Do you think you'd be able to run an archipelago in East Asia? I don't know. Maybe Angel can, but I'm kind of afraid that he would like topple the masses. Who knows? And they call it the Meiji Restoration because Meiji literally means enlightened rule. It means the enlightened rule. And it takes power. So this is a new era in Japan. Remember, we had the emperor is overthrown, Tokugawa shogunate takes over. The Tokugawa shogunate is overthrown because they succumb to foreign influences, and now this new emperor is in charge, and it's going to be under the enlightened rule. Enlightened rule. What does that sound like? That sounds familiar. Eileen, I know you got this. What does it sound like? Yes, the Enlightenment. It means that Japan is going to become enlightened. And that means it's going to follow in the footsteps of Western Europe. Write that down, Markeisha, because you know how you get. All right. So here's the landing of the black ships at the harbor in Japan. This is an actual lithograph of that one. Okay, moving on. This is my little joke. Probably nobody found it funny, but you know what I do find funny about this? Never mind. Okay, that's shaming. I'm going to keep moving. All right. This is the black ships. You can see here all their pollution happening, coming in with all of their smog. The pollution coming from their little steam engines that are burning coal. So we can see the coal. This is the pollution coming out of it. I'm probably taking way too long with this. Don't roll your eyes at me. I'm going to keep going. All right. This is the Japanese interpretation of what Matthew Perry looks like, which I think is fair. I mean, they tried to do a European. They came in and bullied Japan, so they get to, I guess, bully right back by making sure that his bronzer is not applied correctly. I mean, look at that. Okay, moving on. Here are the samurai. The samurai, fierce warriors that were responsible that led the rebellion against the shogun and responsible for restoring the power of the emperor. I mean, just look at this bad dude's face. Like, he just looks like, yeah, I just got rid of the shogun. Yeah, I just restored the emperor. Now what? All right. I'm just going to give him a name. He looks like a Jimmy. I don't know why, but it looks like a bad guy. Also, Adrian, extra credit, 100 points on your next quiz if you shave your head like this. Actually has to be shaven like this, keeping the braid in the middle, bald around here. Ladies, you can participate as well. Free for everybody to earn extra credit. I just think it's an awesome hairstyle. We think that this is going to be great for the samurai. Just look at them. Like, we think that it's going to be great for the samurai. But here's a clue that it's not going to be great. What do we see as the difference between this crew here and this crew here? Bingo! There's going to be a division in Japan. We have the old Japan versus new Japan. Old traditional dress, traditional army, traditional samurai, traditional warriors versus westernization. I'm going to try to write this as neatly as I can. Westernization. We have modern European dress, which is probably signifying that they're going to have this modern Western European style military, which is probably going to signify that they're going to come into the modern new Western European style government and society. Oh my goodness, it's about to get real. So the Meiji Restoration, they modernize, aka Western because modernization is going to be tied to westernization at this point. And they do this defensively. They do this because they're like, we either go in on the game together or we're going to die by the game. Like, we see what's happened what's happening in Latin America and we see what's going to happen and what they've done to Western Africa, we don't want that happening here. So we're going to modernize so we can prevent them from taking us over. I don't know why I'm enunciating so harshly, and I hope I'm not shouting, but anyway, who goes on? This period of defensive modernization is called the Meiji Restoration. They institute political reforms and social reforms. So we have social reforms and political reforms. So political reform is by Tokugawa shogunate. I just said Tokugawa, I'm sorry. By Tokugawa shogunate, hello emperor. Goodbye. They abolished the daimyo, which were the upper class people. Goodbye, daimyo. We're no longer going to have this land owning aristocratic class that has all of this power. Hello, business people. They also take care of and they get rid of the samurai, which I guess is a political and a social change that's happening here, because they're like, bye samurai. I know that's annoying. I could see Natalia saying like, girl needs to stop saying bye. I know, but bye samurai. Hello Western style military. But here's the biggest thing. We've got political transformations, we got social transformations, and now we're into economic and technological transformations. Economic, because industrialization is going to happen, baby. And they're also going to introduce Western technology. I do apologize. I'm recording this at 8 o'clock in the morning, so I am super hyper. So here's what the Tokugawa decides to do. I'm sorry, not the Tokugawa. The Meiji, the emperor, and all of his advisors decide to do. They're like, you know what? We're hungry for Western ideas. So they send travelers, Fukazawa Yukichi and Ito Hirobumi, I apologize, they send them to travel to the U.S. and to Europe. Why are they sending them to travel to the U.S. and to Europe? They're sending them to investigate what the West is like socially, politically, economically, and technologically. This sounds familiar. I know that somebody is rubbing their chin and they're like, I remember somebody else going out to the West in disguise, checking out Europe and the United States socially, economically, politically, and industrially. And who was that? I know Avril's got it. Say his name. You got to say his name. Yes, that was the Tsar, Peter the Great. And what country is it from? Somebody's got it. Yes, somebody please, please, please tell me. I think it was Michelle. Russia. They do the same thing. Remember how Russia tries to westernize? We had that big DBQ on it. Japan's going to do the same thing. Okay, stop running my mouth. Let's keep going so that we can get this done so that I can go to brunch. They investigate Western ideas of science, technology, politics, constitution, the education system, even dances, clothing, hairstyles, everything. They advocate for Western technology and legal proceedings, and they study Western governments and constitutions because they want to make Japan's constitution and government more like the West too. Remember, they're like, we got to level up here. So they end the privileges for the daimyo and the samurai. They hire a standing army that replaces the samurai mercenaries. So they no longer pay the samurai who are loyal to the daimyo. They now have a standing army who's going to be loyal to the Meiji government. They equip and they train their armies using European and American contract specialists. So they hire people to come in and train them how to do it. The samurai don't like this. The samurai don't like it at all. And they, of course, they're like, wait a minute, we put you in power. How dare you try to check us? How dare you try to get rid of us? And the samurai rebel, and they take out like their beautiful swords, and they let down their long, beautiful hair with a little bald spot on top. And they rebel. However, because this new army has been equipped by the West, and they've got their new cannons, and they've got their new rifles and their new guns, they crush that poor rebellion and they take it down. And there's this major push. I'm sorry. Oh no. Did it again. this major push that's made for industrialization. Because this guy here, this Yakuchi, he's like, Japan, we're super backwards, and we can't be like our neighbor to the west, China. We can't be like them. We've got to be like our neighbor to the east, the United States. We have to be like them, and we have to westernize. And there's this major push for industrialization. They're like, we're going to industrialize. They set up railroads, they set up steamships, they set up factories, telegraphs, and factory development is going to be their big thing. Their first thing that they've industrialized, just like Great Britain and the United States, textile industries. And just like Great Britain and the United States, women are going to be at the center of the textile industry manufacturing. So we can see that here, and they're still being overseen by men. So women are doing the work in the factories, in the textile factories, and men are doing the overseeing. Okay. Moving on here. The Meiji government, political again, because I noticed that sometimes they're still getting in the way of political has anything to do with the government. So they set up their Japanese Constitution of 1889 is signed. This is at the very, very, very peak of the second industrial revolution, the technological revolution. They sign it, and it creates a Congress, a Diet. And they have an emperor and executives who have power. So these executives you can think about like our Congress. 5%, and then they allow 5% of the male population to vote. That might not seem like a lot to you, but it really is. And in 1889, they use Enlightenment influence. So this is another where we see the Enlightenment ideals are coming through, where they're saying that it's the right of the governed. That's you. You're the governed. I'm talking to you, Caleb Tavares. You over there, Ariana Eggers. I'm calling on you on Tuesday. The governed should help decide who governs, and they should be able to vote. That's an Enlightenment idea as they participate. So slowly they are allowed to participate inside of it. However, the one thing that we do have to know is that they still don't go completely away of this idea of the emperor being wonderful, because they say that the Constitution is actually a gift from the emperor, right? And they have the Constitution presented as a gift from the sacred emperor, which is descended from the sun goddess. And still, the Congress can only advise. The true power still lies in the hands of the emperor. And that's kind of a big deal. So some other things to kind of note during here too is that the modern education system is still Confucian-based, which is preaching loyalty to the emperor. So while they're not truly going to the way other side to being like the United States or to being like Great Britain, they still have this idea of like the emperor is still highly valued and the emperor is divine. But they're having some Enlightenment influences. Shintoism, the traditional Japanese religion, rises too. And so like there's still like this low thing is still in place. What we still see that's still low, even though they're having Western influences, is that they're not being influenced by Christianity, and because it's still only allowing the male population, they're still low on feminism. Okay, don't get mad because the patriarchy still exists here, and it's something that has to be commented on. Roll your eyes, Erin, I know, but it's true. So we have to see that that's there. People are initially so let's talk about this first. The government and the Meiji Restoration period, we're going to take a moment. I'm just going to give you a moment of silence to maybe talk with your dog or your little brother or sister about it. This is how it is. Remember, this is the family, the emperor of Japan. He's divine, right? He's got the sun goddess on his side. This is the legislative body. That's the Congress. They have the Constitution. They have the House that gets voted upon. I want you to think about the government. The government during this time, which one of these do you think the government is closest to during this time? Is it an absolute monarchy, oligarchy, a constitutional monarchy, or a democracy? Go ahead and think about that to yourself. What do you think it's closest to? Do, 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 do. Okay, yes. If you chose constitutional monarchy, yeah, holla, whoo, yes, right. Like get on the like really, really, really be excited for yourself, pat yourself on the back, yay, do a high five, like kiss your brain, whatever. Because it's right, it's a constitutional monarchy. He's the monarch, he's in charge, but he's being informed by the Constitution. So initially, there's total enthusiasm for everything. They get smart about what they like and don't like, and they make industrialization more Japanese. So, but there's going to be some like pushback to it. So let's think about like what some of the other pushback things that are happening here. And let's look about the military. So the Japanese military is completely renovated. It gets this extreme makeover. They westernize the military. They train them in that way. In order to pay for this new military that they've established, they have to raise taxes on somebody. And who always gets the short end of the stick? Those are the low-class people, the peasants on it. They have to raise taxes on them to fund this new military. How else are they going to do it? How else are they going to afford these new beautiful uniforms and new beautiful guns and new beautiful ships and things? And so to do that, it's a kind of a strain on the peasants, on the low-class people who have to pay for it in the form of increased taxes. But these military industries also stimulate the economy. So now we have new jobs that are available. The peasant classes do suffer. Middle classes and those other skilled former agricultural people, they're going to benefit somewhat. But the peasant classes suffer. There's going to be, they become a little poor. I know I'm saying that like it's not really sad, but there's a little bit of starvation that's going to happen because they can't afford certain things. Malnutrition is going to occur too because they have to have people working in the industries instead of in farming. They live under poor factory conditions. This is starting to sound familiar, right? It's sounding like industrialization. This is something that happens with industrialization, that it's hard on the poor working classes. Labor unions are not there. People protest violently against it, but they're not effective because people are starving. People have low amount of money. Infanticide, the killing of infants, of babies they can't afford to have, increases. People begin to sell their daughters so that they can pay their taxes, but also sell their daughters because they can't afford to pay for them. They sell their daughters to work in military industries. And these military, and they also sell their daughters to work in factories. And that's where the textile workers, it's made up of mostly poor young women. People try to create unions. These labor unions, however, organized unions are illegal and they're crushed. And they begin to say that it's against the family, it's against the divine emperor to actually start unions. So unions become illegal. So just some things along the way. Yes, okay, so they're getting this new thing to be able to compete with the West. However, industrialization has a negative effect on everybody. Showing you this because the samurai are outlawed, and I'm a fan of Tom Cruise. I love Tom Cruise and all of his awesomely bad movies, from Mission Impossible all the way to this one, The Last Samurai, because The Last Samurai is actually talking about the Meiji Restoration. I don't know how The Last Samurai could be like a 5'7" white man from the United States, but he ends up being it. Tune in, watch it. It's a really long movie, but there's no curse words, no nudity. You could watch it with your family and feel comfortable about it. It's really nice, but it also talks about like the decline of the samurai. If you get a chance, do it. It's It's wonderful. Terrible. He's a terrible actor, but I just love him. Anyway, so I just want you to look at this picture here. And if you're watching this with someone else, or if you can holler out to your mom, grandmom, aunt, auntie, uncle, grandpa, dad, ask them, tell them to take a look at this picture and discuss what they see and how does this reflect what the Meiji Restoration is. I am so tempted to make this like your SAQ on Tuesday. I really, really, really want it to be. I'm tired of reading stuff, but I really want to read what you're able to see. Look at the Tokugawa Ieyasu and the Emperor Meiji. He 11 years after he was made emperor. What's the difference? I'll be quiet. I'm sorry, I can't be quiet. No, okay, just pause it and come back to me. What do you see is the difference? One, yes, if you said that you saw a difference. No, I'll be quiet. I'll be quiet. Okay. Okay, yes. All right, if you saw a difference in that the Tokugawa shogunate, this is from the Blue period. I'm sorry, yeah. This is 1450 to 1750. Remember the age of explorations. And this is now Orange period. And this is from 1750 to 1900. Japan undergoes a dramatic change. If you said the word westernization, you are right on it. Oh my gosh, I love you. There's a shift from traditional Chinese values to Western I said traditional Chinese. Traditional Japanese values to Western values. We can see tradition in the form of hair. What else do you notice is different? If you notice a difference in the backgrounds, right? We notice a difference in dress. We notice a difference in military or weapons. We know a difference in stance. Seated, traditional Japanese stance, standing tall, looking like Napoleon over here. He looks a little angry too. But I do love his shoulder pads. It's a very Michael Jackson thing. So this is very reflective of changes in military, because he's got this military garb on, changes in political leadership, and then there's this cultural changes too. Let's dive in deeper into cultural changes that begin to happen. No, I lied. We're not going to dive in deeper to cultural changes that happen. We're going to dive in deeper to what Japan does after it industrializes. So Japan has something to prove. Japan is like that boy who does the glow up from middle school to high school. All of a sudden he grows 6 inches. So now he goes from being like 5'6" to now he's 6'2". He gets a little bit of like arm muscle. I don't know what that's called. I guess those are called biceps. What do they usually want to do? They want to go out and like defeat people. And that's what Japan does. It goes into this utter stage of toxic masculinity, and they start going after other people. And the first person that they go after is the person that bullied them for centuries. And that is, of course, the Middle Kingdom, the kingdom that thought it was the best and baddest forever. That is China. So Japan goes after China. Remember the size of Japan. This is Japan. This is China. Like Japan is super, super small. And this is China. This is like me going after Mr. Cable and winning. And so like Japan they invade China, and then they defeat them. Why do they invade China? They need China's resources. Side note, Japan has very little natural resources on its archipelago. Archipelago is just a series of islands on its little archipelago. So they're like, hey, where are we going to get our coal? Where are we going to get our oil? You know who's got coal and oil around us? China does. And so they're going to go and defeat them. They're also like, yeah, we had to pay tribute to you all those years. Nah, bruh, we're taking it back. So they do that. And then because Russia is trying to eat up territory in China, they then go after China too. Notice how long it takes Japan to defeat both of them. We'll see it in just a moment when we look at each of these. They go after them. They're successful in defeating them in less than a year each. Okay. They're doing this by testing strength. The first step is China. They defeat China in the Sino-Japanese War. Sino, because anything that says Sino is referring to China. Sinification, Chinification, Sino, China. They defeat China in the Russo-Japanese War. This Japanese propaganda, they also use Japanese propaganda to promote nationalism. And remember, that's that sense of pride in one's country. And now all Japanese are starting to puff their chest out. They're standing a little tall. They're saying it with their chest, right? They're walking around like Brianna up in here, right? Just with their chest stuck out, their head held high, like, like they've got all the confidence in the world. And they're going to do some things. They're going to start making, because they become so powerful too, all of those unequal treaties that they had are now going to be equal. Japan is like, hey, you, Europe, Britain, United States, Dutch, all of you guys who came over here and tried to make unequal treaties with us, no, we're a great power of the world. We're now big and bad. This is his hand on his hips. I don't know. I don't know if a big bad person would smile like that. Maybe not. But we're now big and bad, and they demand equal treaties with the West. After defeating China and Russia, Japan becomes a super duper world power. So let's look at some of the pictures here. This is Japanese propaganda. Just know what propaganda is. Look it up. But propaganda promotions to promote nationalism, and it's showing Japanese soldiers. And this is of the Chinese-Japanese War. What's the name of the Chinese-Japanese War again? Please tell me. Go ahead, Jabari. There's no Jabari in class. I know. I just hope there's a Jabari someday. But yeah, it's Sino. So the Sino-Japanese War. Which one do you think are the Chinese, and which one are you thinking of the Japanese? If you said that these were the Japanese, yes. What do you notice about them? What do you notice about their dress? What do you notice about their faces? What do you notice about how they depict the Japanese versus how they depict the Chinese? The Chinese are depicted in traditional Chinese outfits. The dress, the Japanese, they kind of look a little Western. If I looked at that face, I could swear this is a German man. And they also have traditional Japanese dress too. Let's look at another picture. I love these. This is more propaganda. Can I read this story to you? This is propaganda about this guy here, Captain Higuchi. So Captain Higuchi reportedly rescued a Chinese infant during a battle of, I want to say, Wahaway. I might totally be mispronouncing that. Please look it up on YouTube and tell me how to pronounce it later. But as the story was told, Captain Higuchi heard the abandoned child crying on the battlefield, scooped him up in his left arm, and led his forces to victory, flourishing his sword with his right arm. Good googly. After the battle, Higuchi returned the child to his parents. And he becomes the symbol of bravery and benevolence of the Chinese forces. And as seen here, like of the Japanese forces, sorry. And he was celebrated in a number of block prints around the country, often with enemy bullets. You can see the bullets of the Japanese, supposedly, like going around him, that he leads them to victory while holding a child. Oh my word, it's just the ultimate like heroic thing. I can definitely see Miss Nelson doing that. All right, more of the battle. Again, notice how they're showing the Japanese versus how they're showing the Chinese, just showing them just like remarkably. This is actually the Russo-Japanese War. So notice how, again, these are Japanese people. He doesn't look Japanese, but okay, whatevs. And these are the Russian soldiers that they're showing. Again, looking how they're showing traditional Russian dress, traditional clothing versus the Japanese who are looking great and they're all black everything, holding a Japanese fan in his arm. I don't know. I've never been in a fight. I tell you guys that all the time. But can you imagine being in a fight holding a sword in one hand and holding a child in another, or holding a sword in one hand and then like holding up a fan with the black pride on it and the other. I don't know. These Japanese propaganda sketches are gorgeous, beautiful, funny, all at the same time. And this is the Japanese Navy, which is going to be second only to the British Navy. Bam. Beautiful warships in their traditional Popeye looking outfits. They just look, it's amazing. This is wonderful. You can't hate on great. Again, more propaganda. So the Japanese Navy, they modernized in under 40 years. So even though they're second to the British Navy, it took them hundreds of years to become that powerful. The Japanese Navy was like, we'll do it in 40 years. We'll do it in less the time that it takes Jennifer Lopez to be nominated for a Golden Globe. Alrighty, so just really wonderful. They become extremely powerful. And Japan is going to kind of use its power for kind of evil a little bit, because they're going to now, like they had been at the hands of the Chinese for so long. Now they go from being the bullied, to being the kind of Robin Hood, right? Stealing from the rich to give to the poor, to becoming what happens when you get too powerful. What happens when you fill yourself too much? Come on, you know they're filling themselves. Look at this. Look at these pictures. Like they're showcasing all of that. They're going to become the bullies. So they go from being bullied to being like the vindicator for people, to then becoming a bully. They're going to become the aggressor in East Asia. This is setting the scene for something that's going to happen in 50 years. In 50 years, around 1930 something, all the way through 1940 something, Japan is going to be involved in a series of conflicts that are going to culminate within a 4 or 5 year long conflict. A 6-year long conflict. Does anybody know what that conflict is going to be? I believe Angel is now shouting it at the screen. Yes. They're going to this is what's going to lead Japan to becoming part of World War II. Look at this picture, though. Look at this racist picture. I want us to look at it. Sorry, I shouldn't have said racist, but it is racist. Discuss what you see. Where do you think this cartoon was made? Okay. You probably can't see. Let me get rid of this here. Sorry. Now look at it. Where do you think it's made? So we see which one is Japan and who's who. So we have Jap the Giant Killer. Jap the Giant Killer. Can we just deal with that for a moment? Jap the Giant Killer. So, of course, they're referring to Japan. Do not ever, please, use the term Jap. It is a slur. I'm sorry that I said it a number of times, but it was used to refer to the Japanese and who's the giant that they're slaying. If you said China, you're right. And so, like, they're showing Japan Japan bringing down China. If you think that this cartoon was made in Japan just because you saw something on the side, you'd be wrong. The reason why we know it's not made in Japan is because think back to all the way that Japan depicts themselves to the way Japan is being depicted here. And if you saw it in the little corner of the screen here, we know that it's made in the West. We know that it's made in Great Britain. We know that it's kind of a racist cartoon here because it's showing Japanese people dressed in, I don't even know what this is. Did they think that Japanese people were just walking around wearing these? And look at how, like, racially, I don't know. It's just got a lot of issues with it. So even though Japan becomes militarily and economically and politically similar to the West, and they become just as powerful, and they seem to become like on par with them, they're not treated as equals. Why, guys? Because of racism. Why? Always. And so, like, the West can't fully see them as equals because of that. And so they continue to show, like, these terrible, like, political cartoons of them, like, with these, like, terrible features, Um, I don't know. It's difficult when you know like the history of our great country and the Great West, but and why Japan was probably really ticked off. Like now we can know why Japan becomes really kind of pissed at the United States and how they depict them. Russo-Japanese War, yada yada. Russia allied with Great Britain against Japan allied with Great Britain against the Russians, and Europeans start to recognize some of their power, but look at how they're still depicting them. I want us to keep this in mind when we go into something called imperialism later. So Japan becomes, even though Japan was creating its own empire, its defeat of Russia doesn't get it like its respect that it has to here. Okay, let's move on. Japan inspires lots and lots of different types of revolutions against other powers. It's the first Eastern government to utilize Western industrialization to resist the shield of imperialism in Asia. This is big. This is big, guys. It's the first one that uses Westernization to like stop the West from encroaching upon them. Muslims are going to do the same thing. Muslims are going to be inspired to rebel against European empires using industrialization to keep them from taking them over. So it's kind of a big deal. Japan modernized its transportation systems with the railroads. Look at them, beautiful. And then this looks just like a picture that we saw before with industrialization, when we did industrialization, of the wealthy European family on the railroad lines. And now we have the wealthy Japanese family on the railroad lines. They really got dressed up for this. So it seems nice. They have, look at all the former daimyo and newly nouveau riche factory owners. I don't know why I drew a circle. They're all out there dressed in Western style clothing. Western style. Japan, it becomes a power in East Asia. Just becomes a power, and it's going to eventually, as I said, it takes over and it influences all these places. It's building an empire. It's huge, big, great, wonderful, awesome. Japan becomes the empire of the East. That's it, folks. That was supposed to be Porky Pig, but I guess that wasn't. That's all. I hope this wasn't too long. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Come in on Tuesday, ready to rumble. If you're having difficulty writing your, completing the packet that we did in class, I'll do a video on that next, and I'll also post that one up. Have a great day. I'm rambling. Bye. Oh, that's it. Bye.